Hello, my name is Reiko Osoroshi. On this channel, I narrate Japanese ghost stories. Today, I will narrate ghost stories, the truth behind the family's bizarre behavior. The truth behind the family's bizarre behavior. This is an unbelievable true story that happened to me. When I was in the third year of middle school, my family consisted of 4 members: my father, mother, younger brother still in early elementary school. After watching the annual New Year's Eve, Kohaku Uta Gassen, music show, a traditional Japanese TV program, I went to bed hoping to have a good first dream. However, in the middle of the night, I had a nightmare. I can't remember the details and suddenly woke up. My heart was pounding so loud that I could hear it, my pulse was racing intensely, and I was covered in cold sweat. It felt like I had been doused with cold water as I jolted up from my bed, frozen in place. Thinking, starting the new year with a nightmare, great, and realizing I wouldn't be able to sleep again, I went to the living room, where the refrigerator was, to quench my parched throat. Despite it being the middle of the night, I hadn't checked the time, but it was probably around 2 a.m. My entire family was sitting in front of the TV, huddled together in an embrace. The TV was on, even though it was late at night and no programs were being broadcast. The screen was showing a fuzzy memory of a news program. And it was silent. The windows were all wide open, and it was as cold inside as it was outside. Something was clearly off. A chilling sensation ran down my spine. "Hey, what are you guys doing? Are you all crazy?" I shouted, shivering with a mixture of anger and fear. But my brother, with a barely audible voice, said, "Because," and started crying. Seeing this, my parents, remaining silent and expressionless, closed the windows, turned off the TV, and took my crying brother to bed, saying, "Go to sleep." Dealing with an eerie event like this in the early hours of the new year left me unable to sleep. I spent the rest of the night reading manga in my room, waiting for morning to arrive. The next morning, I asked my parents, "What were you all doing last night?" Their response was, "Huh?" Their lack of emotions from the previous night, and their dubious expressions now made me think, could it be a ghost? I was quite freaked out. Well, if I were to tell this story to my friends, they'd just doubt me. Besides, I had recently been dumped by my girlfriend in December, so I chalked it up to hallucinations due to mental fatigue. For a while after that, I woke up again in the middle of the night due to another nightmare. This time, I remembered the details a bit better. It was about being hit in the back of the head by a stranger. Strangely, even after waking up, the back of my head felt throbbing, and for some reason, I was thinking, if I go to a convenience store, I'll be safe. It made no sense. The idea that I had been attacked by a ghost dominated my thoughts. Fearing the supernatural, I rushed to the living room, but nobody was there. The smell of charred meat from last night's yakiniku grilled meat still lingered in the air. And I recalled the strange event that had occurred in the living room at the start of the year. Another sleepless night followed. Then, around the beginning of February, my skin started itching abnormally. I initially thought it was just dry skin, but my back and head felt as if they were burning, and I scratched vigorously. It didn't get better, and I went to a dermatologist to get some cream. When I was about to apply the cream after taking a bath, my brother pleaded, "Let me do it," so I turned around to let him apply it to my back. However, he suddenly slapped my back, causing me to exclaim in pain and anger, "What the heck are you doing?" My younger brother, who always cries when I yell, soon had tears in his eyes. As I thought, "Oh, he's going to cry," tears started streaming down his face silently. Strangely, his complexion started to fade, and eventually, he became expressionless, only shedding tears. It was extremely unsettling. When I looked at my parents, I noticed that they, too, were shedding tears with blank expressions. They were in a complete state of shock. Upon closer inspection, I noticed their lips moving slightly, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. It was just a garbled mess of sounds like, "ah," and "ee." At that moment, the scenery around me turned bright red and gradually faded to sepia tones. I thought I was losing consciousness when suddenly, the surroundings changed completely. It felt somewhat familiar, and I realized I was at my cousin's house. My uncle was looking at me with a serious expression on his face. "Hey, why are you here?" I couldn't comprehend the situation at all. People started gathering around me. Initially, I speculated whether everything that had happened before was just a dream. However, I couldn't figure out how I ended up at my uncle's house, why my grandparents were there, and why I was covered in bandages all over. I was in complete panic. My grandfather said, "Wouldn't it be better if you didn't remember anything?" But my uncle said, "We need to tell him what happened. The perpetrator hasn't been caught yet, and the police will come again in a week." I heard the whole story from my uncle. It turned out that my family's house had been set on fire on January 1st. I happened to be at a convenience store at the time, so I was safe. However, I was attacked by someone who seemed to be the culprit. I was hit on the back of my head, and my entire body was brutally beaten with a bat or something similar. I lost my memory as a result. After being in a critical condition at the hospital for a while, I was taken in by my uncle's family once I recovered. Now it was March, and I had spent 2 months with no memory, undergoing rehabilitation. Just now, my memory had returned. I burst into tears. I cried my heart out, realizing after 2 whole months that I had lost everything precious to me. My grandparents and uncle saw my tear-stained face. My uncle averted his eyes in silence, and my grandparents cried along with me, tears streaming down their faces. My body was covered in numerous bruises, and bandages were wrapped around me like a mummy. I felt a stinging pain in my joints when I tried to move them. For some reason, all the windows were open in the dead of winter in the middle of the night. My family frozen with blank expressions, the nightmare of being struck by an unknown man, the sudden change to a red scenery. The pieces of the puzzle started fitting together like a jigsaw. In the end, the perpetrator still hadn't been caught. And when the bandages were removed from my back, I saw that there were traces of untouched skin on my back, shaped like my brother's palm. 5 years after the incident, when the bruises finally faded, the marks of his palm also disappeared. This is an unforgettable event for me. The story itself might not be frightening, but considering that the perpetrator is still at large, that aspect is what truly terrifies me. Thank you to those who have read it. How was it? You might have something near you. Please be cautious. If you have another memorable dream, it could be a message of some sort. If you have any strange dreams or experiences, feel free to share them in the comments. If you have any other stories you would like me to introduce or any questions about the stories, please leave a comment. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next episode.